Welcome. Thank you for joining me for another Stumble Through. This Stumble Through is going to be short, sweet, and simple, inspired by the infamous Lynn Dixon and some of his specific to-the-point videos he's made. I'll link to his channel in the description below. If you're into technology and or aviation, I highly recommend you check him out. So this, like many of my other Stumble Throughs, are inspired by customer feedback. In this case, I was asked how to manage permissions for users in Red Hat Satellite. In this case, they're working with a service provider who's going to aid their efforts. However, they don't want to give them just full-bore access to the environment. Now, this is where the RBAC in Satellite comes into play. But instead of just passing them the documentation, which is exhaustively great, I figured a video walkthrough would be better served. Either way, enough jibber-jabber. Let's jump right in. So here we have the initial dashboard for Red Hat Satellite. What you'll want to do is kind of jump right into your users, your user groups, your roles. This is where you're going to kind of operate out of to manage the role-based authentication controls in Red Hat Satellite. Now, we're not going to get into the LDAP stores or Active Directory or other sort of identity provider resources that you can pull in to manage your credentials and your users and all that other fun stuff. We'll just kind of demonstrate with the built-in credential provider that is provided with Red Hat Satellite. Now, the same sort of steps and methodologies will apply regardless of whatever sort of credential provider you use. Either way, let's go ahead and create a new user really quick. And I'm just going to say this is going to be user 1, and we'll give them user 1. Their locale we can set for them. Of course, they can set it later themselves if they prefer something otherwise. Just give it a little extra configuration. Let's give it a little simple password. Why not? You'll click through a couple tabs if you want to provide them email notifications. If you set their mailing address there, you'll want to select what sort of location they have access to or what other sort of locations they have access to outside of the basic single location I have here provisioned in this demo environment. The default login, why not? Let's set that to give them a little jump start as they roll into Satellite. Organization, same sort of thing. And here we can assign some basic roles. These roles are going to be the built-in predefined roles with Red Hat Satellite. And they're pretty nice for getting up and running. I'll show you how to kind of modify a few things here and give a little bit more fine-grained access into what you're doing and providing access to. So let's just submit this user. I've got a basic user here now, and that's great. Now what I want to do maybe is set up a user group. Say, again, like this customer who's using a service provider, they've got a group of consultants who are going to be administering part of their environment. We probably want to group them in a group here, right? I've got a little group built out here. I'm just going to call it TCS, the consulting services. Let's just go with that. Now, what I want to do is maybe remove my admin user. I'm going to assign that user 1, and otherwise just make sure we have everything set up here. Now, this is where you can, I probably had a recursion error there because I added the user group to the user group. I think that's what ended up failing. That's fine. This wouldn't be a stumble through if there wasn't some sort of weird hiccup, right? All right, so let's jump back. Let's add this user 1er and click submit. This should be offline and dandy. Right, again, a little weird recursion mess there. You can't add the user group to the user group. Either way, I digress. Now here, what we can do is instead of individually setting roles and permissions to a specific set of, a user or two, we can assign it to this group, which is defined by a set of users, and from that group, those roles will precipitate down into those specific users. So we've got our users, we've got our user groups. Let's jump into these roles real quick. Now again, these are some of the predefined roles here that we have provided with Red Hat Satellite, and they're pretty comprehensive for most of the general functions you want to provide. Now, say you want to, again, give a little bit more fine-grained control into what these users and groups are allowed to do, and it's not provided by one of these built-in roles. Well, that's no problem. Let's create a new role real quick and say content view viewer, right? So this role is only going to be able to generally view the content views that we have created. They're not going to be able to manipulate them, or they're not going to be able to promote them and all this other jazz. We're just going to be able to maybe pull in reporting. We're going to be able to get the state of our content views. So this is actually really handy for something like your security team, who you probably don't want to give complete full access to, but you want them to be able to pull in reports and generate just comprehensive analysis from the environment. Again, we're going to set a location in the organization that this role is applicable to. And we're going to click submit real quick to create this actual content viewer role. Now from here, we can jump back into the role and provide a filter. All right, now this filter is just going to be the permissions on the different resources that it has access to. Now this resource type here, let's go down to a content view, because that's what we're trying to actuate here. And again, we want to provide them a couple of these permissions, but not all. They can view the content views, and that's really about it from here. So if you have some sort of reporting, compliance team, analysts, so on and so forth, this is going to be pretty handy here. You could, of course, give them some extra permissions, but let's not really bother with that. Let's go ahead and click submit. Now this content viewer role has permission to just filter on the content views resource in order to view the content views. I know that the naming is getting a little kludgy, but either way, keep following along with me. It's ideal to keep these as atomic as possible. That way you can kind of flip them in and out as you'd like. So let's go back to this user group. This the consulting services group, as we're going to call it, and just apply this new role. We've got a couple other roles here to give them some viewing access to other services here, so they can view our hosts. They can generally view the dashboard, any sort of Vert.who hypervisor access. They are able to get some insight from that, and again, a couple other things. But let's add that content viewer role that we just created. You click it, you add it to that selected items list, you hit submit, and there's that. Now all the users in this TCS user group are able to view content views. Pretty easy, pretty handy, and again, short, sweet, simple. I hope this helped. If you have any sort of questions, comments, concerns, qualms, queries, conundrums, threats, even, leave them down in the comments, and I hope to see you again soon.